I have been open about my reasons for opposing the war. But one of my opponents in this race, Senator Clinton, has tried, I believe, to rewrite history. She voted for a resolution called, and I quote, "a resolution to authorize the use of United States armed forces against Iraq." Now she's saying that she wasn't really voting for war. She cast her vote after failing to read the national intelligence estimates on Iraq, a report that raised enough doubts that the majority of Democratic senators who read it voted against the war. We need accountability in our leaders. You can't undo a vote for war just because a war stops being popular. President Bush has used that authority to keep our troops in Iraq to this day. And this is not just about the past. It is about the future. Voters need to judge us on the judgments we've made and the lessons we've learned. Senator Clinton has said her vote has not said that her vote was a mistake. She has simply blamed the civilian and military leaders who carried out the policy she authorized.
What happened when we abided by the agreement that George W. Bush made with the Iraqis to leave by 2011 is that an Iraqi army was left that had been trained and that was prepared to defend Iraq. Unfortunately, Nouri al-Maliki, the prime minister, set about decimating it.
Senator Clinton has not said that her vote was a mistake. She has simply blamed the civilian and military leaders who carried out the policy she authorized.
My objections to the war in Iraq were not simply a speech. I was in the midst of a U.S. Senate campaign. It was a high-stakes campaign. I was one of the most vocal opponents of the war, and I was very specific as to why. And so when I bring this up, it is not simply to say I told you so, but it is to give you an insight in terms of how I would make decisions. And the fact was, this was a big strategic blunder. It was not a matter of, well, here is the initial decision, but since then we've voted the same way. Once we had driven the bus into the ditch, there were only so many ways we could get out. The question is, who's making the decision initially to drive the bus into the ditch? And the fact is that Senator Clinton often says that she is ready on day one, but in fact she was ready to give in to George Bush on day one on this critical issue. So the same person that she criticizes for having terrible judgment, and we can't afford to have another one of those, in fact she facilitated and enabled this individual to make a decision that has been strategically damaging to the United States of America.
It is clear, however, that if left unchecked, Saddam Hussein will continue to increase his capacity to wage biological and chemical warfare and will keep trying to develop nuclear weapons. Should he succeed in that endeavor, he could alter the political and security landscape of the Middle East. I come to this decision from the perspective of a senator from New York who has seen all too closely the consequences of last year's terrible attacks on our nation. In balancing the risks of action versus inaction, I think New Yorkers who have gone through the fires of hell may be more attuned to the risk of not acting. I know that I am. So it is with conviction that I support this resolution as being in the best interests of our nation. A vote for it is not a vote to rush to war. It is a vote that puts awesome responsibility in the hands of our president. And we say to him, use these powers wisely and as a last resort. And it is a vote that says clearly to Saddam Hussein, this is your last chance. Disarm or be disarmed. Thank you, Mr. President.
When they had the vote on the so-called Iraq War Powers Resolution, is the Democratic Party split on that?
I think there is a division.
And how would you have voted? Would you have supported that resolution, voted yea or nay?
If it had come to me in an up or down vote as it came, I think I would have agreed with our senior Senator Dick Durbin and voted nay. And the reason is not that I don't think we should have aggressive inspections. What I would have been concerned about was a carte blanche to the administration for a doctrine of preemptive strikes that I'm not sure sets a good precedent. I don't think the president has made the case on Iraq because I don't see weapons
You
of
said
mass
this
destruction.
before
I said this in
the war
October
started.
of October of 2002, 6 months before the war was launched.
If you had been a member of the Senate, you would have voted against the resolution.
Yes.